Hello and welcome to Pathways, where you are invited to join me for a visit with leaders in personal development and cultural evolution. This is your host, Paul O'Brien. Most people live hijacked by their own minds, believing they are their thoughts rather than the thinker of those thoughts. What can we do to reduce our anxiety, racing thoughts, and emotional reactivity? Today, we're talking about reclaiming control of your internal experience, whether you're facing crisis or simply want to optimize your daily performance. Our guest today is Dr. Richard Lewis Miller, a frequent guest on Pathways, and for darn good reason. He is the author of yet another book, Master Your Mind. Practical tools to calm anxiety, silence your inner critic, and stop overthinking. Richard is a clinical psychologist with 65 years of experience, founder of the Coke Enders Alcohol and Drug Program and the Health Sanctuary at Wilbur Hot Springs, and host of the long-running podcast Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, now in its 20th year. He is also the author of at least 7 books at this point. I might have lost count. Well, hello, Richard, and welcome to the Pathway Show.
I was just thinking I better stop doing things because otherwise the introduction will take up the whole interview and I won't get to say anything whatsoever.
That's right. So slow down, damn it. Now, you write at the beginning of this book, Master Your Mind, quote, I went to college for 11 years, earning multiple graduate degrees in psychology, including a doctorate. Yet in all that time, I was never taught how to take control of my mind, how to direct it to think about what I want it to think about, or to create the kind of mental movies I want to watch. This critical skill, perhaps the most important skill for mental well-being, was completely overlooked, unquote. So this is the incentive for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
It's amazing. It is amazing. And, you discovered the fundamental misconception that plagues most people. We believe we are our thoughts rather than the thinker of our thoughts.
You see, once we realize that we're aware of our thinking, once one goes inside and sort of listens in on an inner conversation, gets a sense of like the inner critic or the inner friend or the inner, what all different forms of inners, the little interaction, the nature of the thoughts. Once you notice the thoughts, then de facto, there's something in addition to the thoughts. And that's who we really are. We are that core that can witness the thoughts as well as witness a lot of other things in our lives. And what happens is that the thinking part of us, what we call cognitive processor nowadays, you call it the mind, the computer, that part is so powerful that it attempts to take control of the entire organism by throwing in thoughts and throwing in ideas and throwing in movies and putting in all kinds of things into our heads that demand our attention. And so we are either the victim of our own selves or we take control and we say, enough already.
Now,
I believe I've come up with a method that's palatable, that's reasonable for retraining so that we take control of the mind and we decide what kind of thoughts to have, what kind of movies to watch, what kind of things to create.
well, okay, but it seems to me that thoughts are pretty hard to control. You say in the book, thoughts don't just happen to us. We are generating thoughts, even when we're not aware of generating them. But then you also say the very fact that you can observe your thoughts proves that you are not them.
That's right.
That seems a little contradictory. I have thoughts come to me like crazy. I meditate and thoughts come whether I want them to or not. But how am I generating those thoughts?
How?
Yeah,
That's your mind. That is your mind generating everything possible. And this particular thing is what's getting your attention. Well, let me give you an example of something you could do to take control from my perspective.
okay.
You're sitting at your desk, and all of a sudden, these thoughts come in. That's what you're telling me happens, correct?
Yeah, even when I don't want thoughts to come in.
I need your attention if we're going to do this, and you look like you're working on something somewhere else.
I do. I'm not working
Yeah.
on anything.
Well, are you looking at me over here? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, it's Zoom, man. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
I'm not necessarily looking at the camera. Sorry.
oh, it made it look so strange. I thought you were reading a book or something. Now you look like I can, feel you and talk to you.
Okay.
Anyway,
I
I hope
wasn't
you.
doing anything else, but anyway, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I didn't mean to be rude. Was I rude?
No, no, it's cool.
Okay. um, what are we not? Oh, a method. So I was brought up with the 50-minute hour for therapy.
Right,
So you went to somebody's office, you had a meeting for 50 minutes, and it was once a week. It
right,
had down, it was with Freud, it was 5 days a week, but nobody could afford that. So it dropped down to three and then eventually 1 hour a week. And it's still out of range for many people, a very high percentage. So that's 1 hour a week. And then you have after that hour, 6 days and 23 hours of dilution, meaning all the same stuff as it always was before, with this 1 hour looking for a way to perhaps restructure, change things, behave differently, feel differently, all in that 1 hour. And so at the end of the year, okay, you logged in 50 hours. The system that I'm advocating that I think is, if I may, be revolutionary, is doing mini sessions many times a day. 60 seconds, for example, 10 times a day is only 10 minutes. But if you do that every day, at the end of the month, you have 300 minutes. And at the end of the year, you have 3,650 of those practice sessions. So instead of having immediate dilution, you leave your therapist's office and you got the next 6 days and 23 hours till you see him again. Instead of all that dilution, in this protocol, you have saturation every day, 10 minutes, every day, 10 minutes dispersed,
right.
dispersed. And you can do the 10 minutes anywhere, standing up in the supermarket, online at the movie theater, while you're driving in your car, in the elevator. Whatever you're doing, you can practice these tools. So it's practical, it's doable, and I think extremely worth trying, certainly for 3 to 6 months, and then see what you think.
Well, your book lays it out in a pretty straightforward manner, but why don't we kind of go through that? What you have this clear system, CLEAR, and conscious breathing is a part of it. Um, but you're teaching people to spend time counting. Can you explicate this?
Yeah, certainly. Instead of fighting the intrusions, and I'm just using the word intrusion to signify anything coming into our consciousness that we didn't request, that we didn't request. It just came on its own. That's I'm calling an intrusion. Instead of suppressing the intrusion, if you'll excuse me, instead of suppressing the intrusion, use the energy to direct something. So you create something different rather than take time suppressing the intrusion. And I'm just using counting numbers as one example. It could be anything. It could be picturing a beach. It could be picturing a library. It could be anything you want, so long as you repeat it over and over again so that you have a sense that you are directing what's on the inner screen. I use numbers because it's just easy, quick go to, immediately go to the numbers, not complicated about the beach and the water and the sand. I can do that too, but the numbers work because it's not what you're thinking about that's the key. It's the fact that you're directing what you're thinking about that is the key.
I see. And how do you
This
do that? Is you count from 1 to 20, or what exactly, if you were going to do the counting method, exactly do you do?
I will keep counting until I have a sense that my radar screen is clear, that I can now put on it what I want, and I'm no longer dealing with the intrusion. The
Right.
intrusion, the intrusion will cease because by not engaging with it, by trying to suppress it, you actually starve it because weeds will die of malnutrition if they're not fed. And you see the difference in the vector of the energy. One, attempting to suppress intrusion. Two, going forward in a specified direction that's chosen.
Now, some people use counting in concert with a meditation practice, like they count the breaths, the in and
Yes,
is
yes,
that not the same thing, or is that
yes, of course.
uh-huh.
It is. It is.
Okay. Now you
But here we're taking that tool and using it for a specific purpose and then repeating the use of the tool over time until it becomes almost automatic that and then automatic that we are ultimately in charge if any of us ever reaches that exalted place.
yeah. So how do you know when to start counting? What are the events or triggers or um, thought forms that wake you up to the need to do that?
I'll get some kind of inner alarm bell, like one time when I was in graduate school, we had a lecture by a visiting professor who was an expert in diagnosing schizophrenia. And he gave a 2 hour lecture on the diagnosis. One second. And he gave this very thorough 2 hour lecture. And then at the end, he said, but in the final analysis, I know that I'm sitting in the room with a person who has schizophrenia because a little something twitches in the lower left-hand part of my back.
Okay.
So, in other words, he had gotten sensitive enough to the inner workings of his body that he was able to use it as a diagnostic tool.
Okay. Oh, all right. So,
So, oh, well, I was using that as an example of what we were talking about.
right, right, right. But that was somebody getting a trigger from somebody else, right? I mean, here I am in my life, how do I know? So I guess anytime that I'm upset or anytime that I'm feeling out of sorts, that's a good time to practice your 90-second technique.
Yes, and you want to get good enough at the tools so that when something comes on that you'd like to change, you feel confident that you can put the tool in place and it's going to work for you.
Right.
And you asked me before of when do I know to use them? I heard, that was a question.
Yeah.
And the answer is if I'm feeling something, that's what I meant by the story with the professor. If I'm getting a feeling in my body of something not right, unpleasant, anxious, other than a nice mellow,
Right.
if I if I'm not feeling happy and grateful, if I've lost touch, that's the time to immediately resort to those tools. And part of what becomes necessary is the long period of time of the training until the tools are in place.
Right.
But it's just de facto that if you do something 3,650 times, it's going to have an effect, and it's going to be a pretty serious one.
So do you think that I mean, let's talk about happiness because if I'm feeling unhappy for whatever reason, the word happiness kind of drives me crazy because it's sort of like I can't imagine that there's a reality where we're supposed to be happy all the time, and if we're not happy all the time, it's our fault, and we're not doing something right. That's kind of the way it comes across to me, not from you, but I mean just in general. So what is, you can't be
Oh,
happy
I
all the
wait a
time.
second. I think you're onto something very important there. The notion that if you're not feeling really great, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
There's sort of a shaming for not being able to do better.
Exactly.
And I think you're saying that out loud is really important because all of us have room to do better, to improve. None of us is perfect. We go around stubbing each other's toes all the time, but hopefully we quickly learn to repair, apologize,
Right.
and move on, right? And learn not to brush it under the table.
Right. Okay. So I'm unhappy sometimes, or maybe I have feelings of grief. You know, there's an argument that says I need to feel those things and kind of get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Go through it and accept it and, you know, go beyond it without resisting it or trying to change it. Um, do you go along with that?
I don't think I go along with telling people what to do with their lives.
Uh-huh.
I think I go along with supporting people becoming what they want to become in their lives.
But you do talk about choosing your attitude or choosing one's attitude.
Right. And you choose an attitude that you want to have, but not the attitude that I think you should have just because I happen to like walking around, with golden light, feeling warm and cuddly. That doesn't mean everybody wants that all the time. And I'm not saying I'm like that all the time, but yes, We get to choose our own attitude. Otherwise, what are we left with? That somebody else chooses our attitude? That it comes from outer space?
Well, you
That
talk about the 3 a.m. horror show, and I totally could relate to that because there's times when I wake up in the morning and I am feeling kind of gloomy right off the bat. It's like, you know, I have these thoughts about things that are coming up or things that could go wrong or my grandson or financial worries or whatever. And they just, like you say in the book, they seem magnified in this pre-dawn darkness.
that's right, of course.
So I need to do, and you have this thing, this dawn process that you recommend, is setting your attitude before the day's chaos begins. I love that. I'm not sure how to do that. How do you set an attitude? You start telling yourself something or you visualize, you have visualization is a powerful technique.
I can tell you how I set my attitude. Number one, I remind myself that I am capable of setting my own attitude. That's the first thing that has to be done. I've got to remind myself that I can do this.
Mhm.
Now, once I remind myself, then I get to ask myself the question, prearranged because I've tried to put some time into it. What what kind of attitude would I like right now? And then I select an attitude.
Isn't that the same every day? And don't you want the same thing every day? Optimism, joy,
Uh,
anticipation.
in actuality, what happens is the attitude that I've set sticks and sticks and sticks so that I have less and less slippage into an attitude that I want to dispense with. I'm okay with the attitudes that I'm having and that I've created. And so that's it. And then when there's slippage, I do my best to immediately go into action.
Uh-huh.
And by going into action, again, it's sitting, you're right, quietly and reminding myself that my attitude is mine to create. That initial question we go back to again.
Well, what kind of attitudes do you choose? How long is the menu of good ones?
I I use a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of energetically being in the flow.
Hmm. Okay.
And somewhere around in the nines, I might go into action. And that's how I view it.
Hmm.
I don't put judgmental names on the feeling
Okay.
so much as wanting to energetically describe it. And I think that said it.
Okay. Well, I want
Because
to thank you.
you seem to understand what I meant by the look on your face.
Yeah, I do. And I enjoyed reading your book and I admire your ability to choose your attitude to be conscious and to be doing things. I mean, you are like the most energetically powerful person I've ever read about. Your whole story. We didn't even get into your story about how you got, run over by a bus or it's amazing. And we've run out of time today, but I want to encourage people to get your book because it's got some incredible information in it on how to engineer your attitude, on how to use your own power to take control of your mind rather than having it control you or your programming control you. So thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Miller. It's always a pleasure and it's always super educational. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. It's a pleasure being here, and look forward to our next visit.
Yeah, me too. And I want to make sure to tell our listeners about your website, which is www.drrichardlewismiller.com. That's drrichardlewismiller.com. And all of your work and so much great information is on that website. And I want to encourage people to go there and to buy your book and to benefit from all of the wisdom that you bring forth for us. So thank you for that. And for those who may have tuned in to Pathways late, this is your host, Paul O'Brien, producer of the Visionary I Ching Oracle, an app that supports great decisions and perfect timing. Now, don't worry, you can play and or share this interview whenever you want via the internet or as a free podcast, and I'll tell you how in a minute. Today, we've been visiting with Dr. Richard Lewis Miller, author of the book Master Your Mind, Practical Tools to Calm Anxiety, Silence Your Inner Critic, and Stop Overthinking. Wow. How relevant is that? There's a lot of overthinking going on right now. Anyway, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you listeners for tuning into Pathways, which is broadcast on KBOO.FM in Portland, Oregon. Or perhaps you subscribe to our podcast version for free, which you can find at divination.com. That's DIVI nation.com, as well as by searching Pathways Radio on the YouTube channel, where you can give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Please feel free to forward a link to this interview to your friends. And this is Paulo bidding adieu and reminding you to tell your friends about Pathways Radio and podcasts. And thanks again to Dr. Richard Lewis Miller and to all of you listeners for tuning in and being a part of the Pathways conversation.